How are you today? On today's episode of Legends of Cancellations, we're going to be tackling some cancelled Spyro games. I thought about focusing an episode for each game, but after further research I came to the conclusion that it would make for a more entertaining episode by covering them all at one time. If you'd like to see more of this series, please leave a like and subscribe. Share the video with your friends as it helps me out by knowing people enjoy this series. We won't be going in any particular order, so with that being said, let's get into Spyro for the PlayStation 2. Cancelled Spyro games aren't an uncommon thing. In fact, Spyro has probably had more cancelled games than any other non-Nintendo game in history, and along with that has come confusion, such as what happened in 2001 when Argonaut Games, who developed the Croc series, was set to create Croc 3, which would end up getting cancelled before work even began on the game, but that's a topic for another episode. Our focus is on the Spyro game that they created at the same time, but not all was what it seemed. For 12 years it was believed that they had created a cancelled Spyro game after showing off a demo behind closed doors that featured Spyro. But then came 2013 and a former employee of Argonaut came out to say that the demo never existed and that the screenshots of that demo were fake. We're starting the episode off with that bit of information just to show how things were so easily spread back in the 2000s, and over the years there have been around maybe 10 Spyro games that were supposedly cancelled but ultimately came out to just be a hoax. And even though there are some facts behind some of the hoax, such as the premise of the game being pitched but denied, which doesn't count as a cancelled game because it was never green lit. If you've been keeping up with the recent Spyro drama, you are probably no stranger to seeing false info spread, but back then, with no YouTube or social media, there were a lot of gaming hoax and rumors that spread very easily. Now let's move on to real Spyro cancellations. In the late 2000s, Skylanders' Spyro Adventure was created by Toys for Bob, but that wasn't an easy road for the release of that game, as it was cancelled twice before coming to release and was originally a lot different and a lot more close to an MMO. Skylanders' history begins with the title Spyro's Kingdom, which would have seen a release on Nintendo Wii and PC and was in development by Helios Interactive. Not much is known about this version, but we do have some gameplay that survived and was documented, and as you can see, it was very similar to other MMOs of the time and even featured layer customization and would have been a weird change for Spyro since it was going for more of an adult and dark twist at the time, where a lot of games were attempting to go dark and stray away from their juvenile stories and gameplay, such as The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess and many more. This would have been too drastic of a difference, as I don't believe this version would have gone to have any success, and neither did Helios because it was cancelled shortly after being displayed. A little later, version 2 would be created, which would be much similar to Skylanders. However, there were no figures or portals, and this version was set to be Nintendo exclusive, but fans of the series were very angered because this version was shown to the public, and this led to fans expressing hate and sending death threats to Toys for Bob, which is very similar to what went on recently with all the Spyro Reignited drama, except Reignited is coming to life, where the second version of Spyro Kingdom was ultimately cancelled after being announced for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 as well. However, this was not the end for Spyro's Kingdom. Activision liked the concept of Toys for Bob version of Spyro Kingdom, and it was relaunched as Skylanders, and this time featured the portals and the figures, which would go on to be one of the most financially successful games of all time. In 2002, an educational Spyro game titled Spyro's Ever After was being storyboarded but was quickly cancelled. There was never any public reason given. However, YouTube user Bitmap's channel posted the opening 7 seconds of the game's intro. Take a look. Do you remember Agent 9 of Spyro Year the Dragon? In 2003, Vivendi Universal wanted to take him and create his own game set outside the Spyro universe but still be in the Spyro universe. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but it was planned and actually started as a platformer, and given the name Prime 8, the game took on a James Bond like spy story. However, after they ran trials and product testing with children, it became apparent that the kids didn't like it. So the developer Blue Tongue Entertainment redesigned him to give a cooler look and changed the gameplay to be a lot more like Ratchet & Clank. Unfortunately, something went wrong with the game, and even though it was near completion, it never released to the public. But as you see, we did get gameplay of the game, and it was set for a PSP release and kinda looks like it would have been a really impressive game for the PSP, but ultimately, like all the others so far, this game was cancelled. But it was reworked and reskinned to create Death Jr. for the PSP. Even though it was an entirely new, it retained a lot of the animations and textures that was used in Agent 9. After Primate was cancelled, the build was handed to Backbone Entertainment, who reworked the game into a proper Spyro game, which was going to be an Xbox original exclusive, and it was set in a large desert world, but it was only a timed exclusive and nobody really knows why it was cancelled. But Mika came out in 2017 and released footage of the game and answered questions. Crystal Feature asked if it had a connection to Enter the Dragonfly, which Mike replied that it predated Enter the Dragonfly, and through what he posted, we learned it was more than a desert world and appears very similar to the original trilogy. Mike did go on to say he has the ISO for the game. Still, however, I don't know if he ever released it publicly, but he did say it was compliant to retail hardware, which means much of the game was probably finished. So Mike, how about releasing that ISO? You know, do it one time for your boy. A little on the game's story real quick. It was set directly after Year of the Dragon. So here's a little synopsis that I couldn't word better myself. So here's the direct summary from Wikipedia. The story begins shortly after Spyro Year of the Dragon. The dragons are in celebration of a rite of passage for the young dragons, and for the Grand Dragon Parade with the arrival of a new young dragonfly. Guardians for the baby dragons. However, during the party, Ripto teleports in via a portal along with his henchmen Crush and Gulp, disrupting the celebration, intent on capturing the new young dragonflies to weaken the baby dragons. However, his spell misfires and the dragonflies become scattered throughout the dragon realm. Spyro is tasked with recovering the realm's new corp of dragonflies. Spyro eventually completes his mission and faces Ripto. Spyro wins the battle and Ripto runs for his life, swearing that he will be back. The game ends back at the party with the celebration being continued. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Legends of Cancellation. I had a lot of fun researching this one and uncovering things that are unknown to most. In case you blinked earlier, every source is in the description below, and I'd like to give a huge thank you to the Spyro Wiki, Unseen64, Bitmap, Mike, and other researchers who did the hard part over the years, unearthing information of these games. Now, I do want to say I don't claim to know everything, so if there were some things that I left out that you think were important to these games that I should have mentioned, feel free to put that in the comment section down below. Anyways, this has been Legends of Cancellation. I hope you've had an enjoyable experience with this episode. Have a good day, and I will see you in the next video.